Hello and welcome to this very first Daiki LinkedIn Live event on AI strategy and use case discovery. Thank you so much everyone for joining us today. My name is Katharina Körner and I'm engaged at Daiki as Corporate Development Manager here in San Jose, California. And I'm delighted being here with Jona Böddinghaus, the CEO of Daiki and CEO of Gradient Zero. Hi Jona, you're in Vienna, or where are you actually?
I'm in southern Germany currently.
Welcome.
Hi.
So we span all various time zones here. And before we dive into our topic and give a short introduction of ourselves, I would like to encourage you, meaning everyone who is joining us live, to ask questions or put comments at any time during the program in the comments. And we cannot promise to get to everything because we have so much content, but we will do our best to address the questions. Now, with that, I'd like to say hello again to Jona and ask you to please introduce yourself and also mention very briefly what Daiki is doing and offering, so it's kind of clear where we're coming from.
Yes, thank you, Katharina. Hi. Hi, everybody. My name is Jona. My background is software. Started in game development back in school days. Studied philosophy, computer science, mathematics. Now working in machine learning AI for many years as a AI manager, and I'm co-founder of Gradient Zero, a Vienna-based machine learning company, and now Daiki, which was founded last year. Managing director and co-founder, and very happy to be on this journey. Daiki is on a mission to help teams build AI in a successful, sustainable, and responsible manner. So we're building a framework and a product around responsible AI with AI governance, compliance, and ultimately successful AI projects.
Thanks so much. I'm really glad I joined you and can work with you, because this is exactly what my passion is, this cross-disciplinary collaboration, that we get the best of all worlds. And regarding myself, short introduction, my background is legal. I have a PhD in law and have been working in the Austrian public service for 10 years and then as a CEO for 5 years before I moved to Silicon Valley. And preparing for that, I made this shift into information security, or I did a lot of educational things in information security, and then dove into privacy. Was working for the IPP, that's the International Association of Privacy Professionals, for 2 years, and I was also organizing the first AI governance training day. And this was really kind of eye-opening to me. This whole universe that I discovered, responsible AI governance, and where do all those pieces fit together, how the strategy relates to governance, etc. And diving deeper, I realized that focusing solely on privacy risks, like I did, provided just a glimpse into this vast landscape of AI governance. And I think true understanding really comes from implementation. And I saw that a lot of companies grapple with recognizing how can I realize the potential of AI within my own organization. And this is why over the past 2 months, I'm together with Jona, you being kind of my bouncing ball here with your immense experience, we put together this structured approach to developing an AI strategy, so that before we even talk about the nits and grits of operationalization of responsible AI, we need to talk about what are we actually doing in our company. So I'm really excited about this structured approach that we developed or put together. So let's start. So why is an AI strategy even important? Well, if we start with some kind of data that is out there, we see that in various reports and surveys, there's a significant failure rate observed in AI projects, with this very often cited estimate of 80% failure rate in AI projects. That's almost double of the failure rate seen in corporate IT projects a decade ago. And this is, of course, immense, given the opportunities and also the costs. Jona, how is this from your perspective? Is this also what you see in practice? And what's your perspective on AI strategy and why it is so important to develop one?
Yes, thanks. So first of all, happy to be a bouncing ball. I think the head shape and hair matches. So yeah, I think everybody is talking about AI once again. AI hype would be underestimated, and really everybody's using ChatGPT and these tools these days. And it's just a very important difference between users browsing to OpenAI and playing around with ChatGPT and an organization really making use of these new tools, or any ML tools for that matter, in a way that really empowers them to be more productive, be more effective, accelerate the workflows, and so on. So in order to actually make use of AI or machine learning in an organization, you really need an AI strategy rather than just a try-out approach and a hacker approach to just play around with AI.
Yeah, I really like this holistic approach. It's not like just on this individual, I as an employee sneak in some use of ChatGPT, but it's really turning this whole organization into an AI-enabled organization and to increase the overall knowledge of the organization, right? Not just like individually. So let's move on and see how strategy, thank you, in general can be defined. So if we look at that in general, if we Google the term, the result is usually saying something like that a strategy is a plan or action designed to achieve a major or overall goal. The Oxford English Dictionary, I'm not exactly sure what the exact name of this dictionary is, but it even cites a military context, saying that a strategy is the art, which I like, the art of planning and directing overall military operations and movements in a war of battle. I hope it's not getting as martial as this, but I still like starting from the very beginnings, and a description of strategy that I personally really like is from the book that I also have here, which I can also recommend. It's called Making Great Strategy by Jesper Sørensen and Glenn Carroll from Stanford University. And this description says, one factor underlies all sustainably successful strategies. It is a logically coherent argument that connects resources, capabilities, and environmental conditions to desired outcomes. So when it comes to AI, this is exactly what we're doing with these steps that we'll share with you in just a minute, meaning that we are creating a coherent argument for a specific use case implementation. Slide 3, please. So as we're saying here, an AI strategy transparently demonstrates how AI activities and investments translate into tangible business benefits. It really serves as a compass, leading the organization through this very complex AI landscape to identify AI use cases and at the same time ensure the responsible and successful design, implementation, and maintenance. And this could mean a lot of things. It could mean realizing immediate benefits, such as deploying chatbots for customer service, or long-term projects like optimizing the supply chain. And how the strategy does that, and what does it need to entail to live up to this goal, we'll see in our next slide. That's the core of our work and our white paper that we have mentioned and that we worked on during the past few weeks. It just gets a final touch and will be released soon or published soon. So all of this you will find in this white paper and also in detail. So don't worry, we will not be able to cover all of this in depth today, but this is the roadmap. So this is the 4 stages or 4 buckets with several steps that we put together as a help for you to develop an AI strategy. And what we see here is that it's really a step-to-step guide that leads to close alignment of AI projects with business goals. This slide is an overview, and in a minute, we will dive into those various buckets and then have a conversation about it. I just want to lead you through this very rather quickly. So first, the first bucket, the first stage, we see that as in any project or initiative in any organization, it's crucial to get the fundamentals right. That means leadership support, budget, someone who leads the project, have a diverse team, the right skills, a policy and objectives for the use of AI systems in general, and assigning roles. So this is really the fundamentals, and so that then the project can really start with the right resources. So right top corner, we have the next stage. That means the project starts, the fun begins, and it needs to start with a very clear alignment with the overall company goals. So I think this is the very, very core of AI strategy, that it really needs to be aligned with company goals, like which company goals and which objectives does it serve. Then when you have the support, the team, the clarity on what company goals you want to support, like I said, the fun part can start, the use case discovery process. This is really the brainstorming, the analysis, what is out there, benchmarking, what do others do, the creative and exploratory part. And when you have a variety of ideas and use cases that are relating to your business goals or department, depending on where you implement this, then those use cases need to be prioritized. And we will get to this in more detail for sure. I think this is an extremely important and interesting part, and I'm looking forward to hearing Jonas' experience on this. And then the prioritized use cases, depending on the company size and resources, on how many we're moving forward with, they then need to be examined and assessed in detail. This is done through a feasibility analysis that you see here in number 8, and a risk assessment, number 9, still in the top right corner. So the feasibility analysis assesses the viability of the project, meaning if the project is realistically achievable, and you take into consideration various factors. It's pretty broad, such as technical, logistical, legal, and financial aspects. While the AI risk assessment, next step, helps organizations really evaluate the specific risks to individuals, groups, societies, to their own organization, and also the benefits associated with deploying AI in a specific use case. And when we have those two things assessed and have more information what we would like to see or assess in practice, we move to the next stage, which includes the proof of concept, the validation, testing, and again, an analysis of costs and benefits of a specific use case, to then, last bucket, last stage, prioritize what you really want to see put into the pilot phase, execution, and monitoring. So we will get to this in more detail. Let's start with the very first bucket. Thank you. This is just the same in a little bit more detail. So from those things, team and policy bucket or stage, Jona, what do you find the most relevant here from your experience? So which of those steps make the biggest impact in real life, would you say?
Yes, so we spoke about AI adoption in the beginning, and the fact is that AI adoption is still very low. Everybody's talking about AI, but actually AI implementation projects or initiatives are really still picking up. So for me, what we see in the wild is that leadership commitment and AI policy is really, really important. What this means is that without clear commitment to actually become an AI company, or at least to take AI seriously and implement it into production, and policies, so basically a plan how to get there, nothing happens. What we see all the time with our clients and customers are situations where there are great initiatives around AI, maybe even dedicated data science teams trying out things, developing prototypes, but still no clear plan, and no success in implementing these AI initiatives into real processes and production environments. So commitment, especially for leadership, and AI policy. And for policy, also this connecting element. I really, from this book you mentioned, I like this connecting part, right? If you think about a logically coherent argument that connects resources, capabilities, this connection must come from somewhere, and an AI policy is basically this enablement factor for connection and alignment to implement AI.
And if you say leadership support, how is this in practice? Like, is it does it depend on the size of the company who the leadership must is, who supports this, or does it always have to come from the top, like CEO or board of directors, or can it be, I don't know, the HR manager? Like, whose leadership support in practice?
Yeah, it's a good question. So in practice, of course, the AI implementation, like any project, is always also a question about budgets. So of course, on a certain level, you need top commitment, so management commitment. But to actually get AI going and get it into real implementation projects, you can always find solutions where you have an AI group, for example, that sometimes even fly under the radar of top management, where there's a group that really, like a committee, is assembling all the AI pieces and is the enabler of AI policies and strategies.
Okay, thank you. And in practice, how relevant is the AI policy for you as a machine learning project developer, or how much significance does it have in real world scenarios, if or what AI policy an organization has?
Yes, so besides awareness, that's also part of AI strategy, of course, raise awareness about what AI can do for your organization and what AI is and ML. Actually, this policy really plays a role in aligning employees and getting them some leading lights where to turn to. So if an employee wants to know, I don't know, about process XYZ, there's always some internal resource that he or she can use. With AI, it's the same. There needs to be a policy, like a structure or process, that really helps them, for example, get into ideation phases or workshops, then also use case discovery phases that we cover later, all the way up to implementation projects and AI assessment phases.
Thanks. So we have some questions. Maybe before we move to the next stage, we could address those questions. So Alexander is asking if the strategy is aligned with existing and or developing AI standards. So that could be a couple of things now, that those standards you're referring to. It could be management standards, such as the new ISO 42001, which is for AI management systems, or you could refer to technical standards. I think it's a complementary thing. So the various AI standards, especially when it comes to maybe operationalization of AI, so responsible AI principles, or even responsible AI principles themselves, they are actually in AI policies and AI-related objectives, usually responsive AI principles such as explainability or bias or privacy protection or security. Those like values and objectives are also laid down in this policy. Would you like to add something to this, Jona?
No, just to emphasize that especially 42001 is really a great way to actually implement an AI strategy, because having a clear and clearly defined AI management system in place and integrated into your workflows and organization really helps to facilitate AI services and projects and an AI strategy.
Yes, because the 42001, which is here, cannot share it. Also has exactly those elements, right? Who is like leadership support, team, make policies. So there's a lot of overlap, definitely. So it's supporting each other, or one is the precondition for the other, I would say. A good governance is the precondition for realizing a strategy, right? Would you say that too?
Yep.
What about the next question? There's no AI project on its own, really. At least that's what Alexander says. Yeah. Is there something that we haven't addressed? The key issue here, he says, is that how you will embed a strategy or a specific AI solution into product service discovery and development cycle. Is this something you can address, Jona?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I totally understand the question, but let me add that AI strategy is really not the same as successfully implementing one AI project. So one real life example is a university clinic that we currently work with, a cardiology project, very interesting stuff. And what we try to do there is, by implementing one AI project successfully, implementing an AI strategy. And that means that they get independent, they become independent of external AI consultants. So one project you can do with just hire a bunch of ML experts or consultants, pay a lot of money, implement the AI project, and then that's implemented and you're done. What we try to achieve there is really have this one AI project implemented and then have a structure, processes, a group, policies, etc., in place, so that this team there can work on future AI projects in a very structured and successful way. And that's exactly AI strategy, and that goes way beyond projects or products.
Can we, Julia, our colleague, is helping behind the scenes. Can we go back to the overview slide, please? So what I really liked, like at the beginning when you started working on this, was that you exactly like emphasized this so much that if I, for example, in a later stage, let's say, I don't know, 13 even, or after the feasibility analysis and AI risk assessment, so 8, 9, 10, if I see that this is not feasible, I can go back because I have the other use cases that are also already prioritized, already lined up, and could start with another use case, assessing it through. So you have this structured approach where you can always go back if something doesn't work out, right? And I think what you are describing is when you have developed the first use case, you actually also building this whole structure with life, and then have this AI strategy structure already. And it's not, so it's kind of independent. It's an independent structure of the use case that you can always use for new and other use cases as well.
Yes.
Okay, then let's move on to, perfect. Thank you so much. So this is what I call the fun part. So what goals do we have? What use cases could we do? How do I prioritize them? And then are they even feasible? And what risks and opportunities do they really bring with them? Jona, if you would look at these things, may I ask you about use case discovery, because this is also in our title, and we talked about this in advance. Can you give tips how to start this, or if can this be overwhelming? Does it have to do with the team composition, maybe, if this is an easy or a complicated step? And also, could you already talk about how you in practice prioritize use cases at this stage?
Yeah, and also to maybe say a word about the Daiki product for a second. Use case discovery is interestingly really one of the most successful processes that we currently offer. So successful in the sense that it's really used often and by many customers. And why is this so? Because use case discovery is a structured process that brings you into the position to actually decide in a team on which use case to actually implement or at least take further into POC phase, for example. And the trick here is really actually quite simple. Make it measurable, like come up with a certain set of factors, criteria. For example, feasibility, business value is most probably number one. And certain risk assessments, maybe other soft factors like a team or long-term strategy goals, and then combine all these factors in a formula that you put in a table, quite simple. And then you have a ranked list of your use cases. And based on this list, where all your stakeholders should contribute in a workshop setting or in interactive or async sessions, you can use this table then as a basis to select the use cases in the top spots and transition to POC phase or feasibility studies.
I mean, how would you decide? So I think if you do a use case prioritization to see which of the use cases I will even, do a feasibility analysis or risk assessment for, one anticipates also some results of the feasibility analysis, right? I mean, if it's a really great use case and it would probably bring up my revenue, whatever, but then I already anticipate it's technically too expensive, I would not prioritize that for really going through the next stage of feasibility analysis and risk assessment.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the one real world example we're currently doing is the use case discovery selected certain use cases based on data availability as one feasibility factor. Data availability obviously is for machine learning projects very important, and so this was a very important thing to consider. We did this really just by speaking with the customers and diving a bit deeper into their environment and PI teams and so on. And then later in the POC phase, we discovered that the data that we had in mind are maybe only part of the solution, which is quite normal. So that's the whole point of POCs, to even dive deeper into the problem. But that's the process. So really start with a short but precise and concise feasibility assessment, select the use cases with the other factors in mind, and then move on with the top use cases for POCs or implementation.
How many use cases would you, depending on company size, have lined up for feasibility analysis and the risk assessment? And maybe also the documentation. I think we should stress how important the documentation is also at this stage, because things can change, as you see. You assess data as a problem, or maybe there's a legal obstacle and then laws change. So, sorry, 2 questions in one.
Yeah, documentation, that's a good point. I can only underline this. Like you said, it depends on the size of the organization. That's the number one factor here. It's a good idea to move more than one use case over to the next phase, because it can always happen that the POC or the feasibility phase, depending on the scope, is not successful in the sense that you need to make significant adjustments to actually reach the business goal or even switch the use case entirely. So I would always recommend to do more than one, but like I said, depends on the organization size, a bit also on risk appetite, of course, and budgets. But yeah.
Okay, thank you. Victor asked. Victor is wondering if developing standards and policies at the very start is somehow an obstacle for getting things done, if I rephrase that correctly, and asks if it isn't better to get the POC and pilot first to see if it works and bring benefits, and then redefine standards and policies. So,
well, the simple answer is, and this should not be funny, but really from experience, is that of course it is organizational internal discussion about AI strategy can take years, right? Can go on forever. So you need to have a structured process in itself to come up with an AI strategy, and that's exactly where a framework like Daiki can help. Like, not start with a blank page and like, look, we have a workshop and now we define our AI strategy, but really start with a very clear template how to get there. And if you start with such a template that we present here or with Katarina's white paper, then I'm really confident that this won't take months, but rather weeks.
Yeah, I also would strongly argue against this idea, because I mean, I can put so much money and resources into something that is so off and does not align with laws or company values, for example. I mean, just a very random example, but if you're a company where transparency is really important, like you would, and you use black box model, and then you do all those things, pilot phase, and then you really discover that it's not explainable enough for your context, that would be awful, right? And I also think that writing a policy and standards, there's so many good examples out there already. There's so much, Microsoft has so much documentation out there, like how they do the policies, how they do the playbooks, or LLM policies. There are really good templates out there. So I think it might not even be so difficult, because there's so much alignment in general, at least about, how what's responsible AI principles, which I mentioned before. So I'm not sure if the standards and policies are really the problem, or it's more like this awareness that also someone else referred to before, and this commitment and support by leadership. If that's maybe more the problem in where you're coming from with this question. Sparsh is asking, any recommended or newer frameworks for AI use case analysis? So in our white paper, we will have not only general ideas how to do that, but also a template for use case discovery, use case exploration. Do you want to add something, Jona, to any of those questions? And maybe Scott is saying, how do these stages work? Can they run in parallel, for example? But yes, so feasibility analysis would be done for several use cases. Is there something you want to add, Jona? Sorry, I'm cutting you off.
No, that's okay. I mean, so double yes, I would say they can run in parallel for different use cases. They also can run in parallel regarding the structure. So there are phases here that are not strictly linear.
I see. Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you. Yeah, let's move on to stage number 3. Julia, would you please? Thank you so much. Sorry. Yes, perfect. Thank you so much. So, so after what we have already just discussed, we have the pre-selection of AI projects. So which one will move on to a proof of concept stage, and with all the consequences, I meaning the resources that will go into this. Jona, in your experience, how important is stakeholder engagement here? Because I could imagine that now it's getting really technical, and maybe leadership is either cannot relate maybe to specific aspects. So the communication probably is pretty important, like clear communication that is accessible to everyone, or maybe at this stage there's a risk that this happens somewhere in a non so transparent way. I don't know. What's the up and downsides here? What should we look out for or watch out for?
Yeah, I would really highlight the stakeholder engagement point, because that's really crucial. What we see in real world projects is that failing to involve all stakeholders early on in the projects really is one big failure reason or failure point for AI projects. So, for example, it happens that a new stakeholder that was overlooked, or that is maybe even new to the organization, comes to the project at a phase where you already invested quite a lot of resources, And then for some reasons that are not even technical reasons, so it's not about like the data does not fit or the goal is not achievable, but maybe the overall workflows or manufacturing processes in an industry setting just work differently or have different business objectives altogether. So if such a situation happens down the road in a project, that can lead, and in our experience does lead to project cancellations. And that's really avoidable if you make sure that you involve all stakeholders from the very beginning and keep the communication between the stakeholders going by means of having a structure, like a platform to communicate them. Documentation is key, and of course, regular meetings and so on.
Mm-hmm. Right. At the very beginning, when we talked about AI leadership, or we mentioned it, we didn't specify, but it could be a steering committee, right? And then we have the most important stakeholders or the representatives in this committee, and this will always get regular updates how things are going.
Yeah, and it's really important that the steering committee is diverse in the sense that it's really like every part and every role of the organization is represented there.
Mm-hmm. And that's why I think it's also so important to break down what's going on in an accessible way, because it's just inherently so technical, and there could be challenges maybe in the POC phase that are challenging but possible, of course, to communicate, because the technical details need, and some people are not so interested in technical details, so you need to communicate this, I think, in a very broad way. We're still here. I want to still pick this up and mention that it seems that use case discoveries are really, like you also said, in practice, like this is like so interesting for organizations. So there's another question on this. The various ingredients for use case discovery. Do you look at the data or processes that exist? Or do you start from the classes of machine learning algorithms? Classification, clustering. I think that's interesting.
Yes, it's a good question, because starting from data or ML algorithms is really a common mistake, because you should always start from business value. That's always the number one priority. AI ML is a tool. It is one tool in your toolbox that can help with specific problems that you have in your organizational processes or workflows. And so you always need to start with business value and then deduct from there what could help. And then, of course, data and capabilities, also employee experience and so on are factors, but always start with business value.
Mm-hmm. And you also always emphasize that it's so important to have concrete metrics for this from the very start. So to really have this concrete alignment with the business goals. So, for example, you mentioned it could be, I don't know, in 3 years, I want to be 77.5% more effective in my, I don't know, supply chain management in this specific aspect. So very concrete goals. Probably are several of them. So I can also have this flexible approach, which use case, the return on investment. Like you need to have a matrix actually with several goals, and so you need to calculate, right? How expensive is this AI project with which outcome, so that it can have a return on investment transparently assessed.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. That comes back to also what we presented at stage 2, the business KPIs. It's always a good idea to really make your goals measurable. I mean, that's true for any projects, not only AI projects, but it's especially true for AI projects because obviously AI ML depends on data. So it's data driven already. So it should be quite easy to make it measurable in the sense that, okay, this AI solution should increase my revenue by X% or should improve my I don't know, net working capital by X%, optimize my supply chain in a measurable way in 3 years by that much, and so on. That's always a good idea. Make it measurable.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I see that there are other questions, but as we only have like the 4th stage now to go through in theory, I will keep the questions for in 5 minutes, because then we can really dive into it. Next slide, please. Thank you. So this is the 4th stage, implementation phase. So I would be interested in, so here we have the results from the PoC and the cost-benefit analysis that comes afterwards again, to really make sure that this is not, that this is a good idea to move forward with, and it's very tangible and measurable. You select and prioritize which AI projects you now really want to put into production, and have the pilot phase. And after that, execution, monitoring, plan, do, check, act. So iterative process of monitoring and improving and assessing if it's still worth it, and then capacity building and scale. But I would like to ask, what's the difference between the pilot phase and the PoC, the proof of concept phase?
Yeah, I think the important, I mean, of course, a term question depends on the definition of the terms, but what is really important to discriminate is like how much effort do you spend on certain projects. And like we said in the beginning, AI, one of the main functions of a successful AI strategy is make AI happen, in a sense that it's really implemented into production. What I see in many organizations is that there are many AI pilots, and this means that just by defining, okay, there's a pilot, it doesn't need to lead to a product or a solution, a service that is actually used in production. So the AI strategy really structures this in a step-by-step process, and the pilot phase really leads to the implementation. So real implementation, that's important. It's not a phase in itself that can be used for try out some things, but it's really a stepping stone for further implementation. And that's the function of this number 15 here, the pilot phase, to really assess the real solution in a scenario where you can adjust certain things for the complete rollout later.
I could imagine that it's not that easy as we just described it, to have a metrics and measure how successful the pilot phase is. How does that look in practice? Like, what key indicators do you use to monitor if the pilot phase or also the implementation phase, especially at the beginning, is on track?
So a good AI strategy, and basically all project management strategies, involve defining very clear requirements and goals of the project. So that's already done at this phase. So one of the key goals here is to measure progress against or towards these goals. So that's really classical project management. What is important here just to mention is that again, ML by its very nature depends on iterative processes. And you really need to make sure that you have processes in place to track progress in these iterations. That means you need, for example, if you're doing ML training, you need to really assess, are you on the right path towards achieving a certain, I don't know, accuracy goal for your model, for example. So that's important, like define the goals beforehand, not change the goals while you implement the project. That's a common mistake. If you change the metrics and goals while implementing the model, you're lost already, because then you can do anything. You need to define them beforehand and then measure against these metrics. And yeah, for the concrete measuring, there are good tools like MLflow, weights and biases, and others. And of course, the higher level documentation towards the requirement and project management goals.
Is it, if all the steps before were done as they were supposed to be done, is it a sign of failure if I, at this stage, pilot phase, still terminate a project? Or can it also be a sign of, still success because I have good reasons for that? Like, how likely should it be at this stage that I terminate it, or is there no should?
No, of course. I mean, of course, it's what is always important is like to assess the real world implications of the system, and a good AI strategy and a implementation project entails risk assessment and impact analysis in very early phases. But of course, AI projects, like many other projects, are agile and iterative, and it could happen that, for example, what works on a small scale does not work on a larger scale, or real world data is different than expected, and so on, many reasons. And then, of course, it's the best idea to stop this project and stop the implementation. If you have a good AI strategy, you can fall back on the strategy and really jump back to the next best phase, or the matching step in your journey, and just go on with the next use case or the adjacent use case that is maybe even working on a similar business goal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I like that very much. That it reminds me of if you like to peak a mountain, and like a couple of hours before the peak, you realize, I don't know, I don't have enough food, or I'm feeling sick, and you turn around. It's the best decision you can make. So if you, even in this stage, have reasons for not moving forward, it can be a success, right? Because, and it doesn't mean you have done anything wrong necessarily. If you really have documented and you know exactly why specific decisions were made, and you have this fallback position because you have the other use cases already prioritized. That's why I'm really so happy with this structure, because it you have a pipeline if you really fill it with life. Is there something that you want to mention here, or should we conclude with this bucket? I mean, we cannot dive into details, right? So that's why, but maybe you want to add something?
No, it's okay. Let's move on with the time.
Okay, now we have about 15 minutes left, or a little bit less. So either we talk about a practical example, or we dive into questions. Jona, what would you prefer? Or what do you think we should do?
Yeah, I mean, there's one new question I can see. Maybe we can quickly answer this one, because it's really interesting about data strategy, and then maybe we have some time with this private LLM example.
Okay, so Stephen is asking if organizations should prioritize a comprehensive data strategy first as a fundamental step before getting into AI strategy.
Yeah, I find this very interesting, because that's really what we see with one of our customers currently, that they have a data strategy and an AI strategy. I kind of find this funny, because it's the same thing. I mean, really, of course, have data governance in place and have an overview about your data landscape is kind of a prerequisite and a homework that you need to do. That's clear. But a data strategy in itself has no value, because what does it mean? Get your ERP or CRM systems in place? Okay, that's normal. That's the groundwork, so to speak. But an AI strategy naturally involves having a good data governance structure. So for me, that's really the same thing. An AI strategy, and AI strategy does make a lot more sense for me, because it always is directed towards a goal. Data strategy sounds like, I don't know, tidying up your house. It's kind of boring. It could be important, but it's kind of boring. AI means getting somewhere, becoming a data-driven company, for example.
And sorry, this is a very the question relating to the start, but who is driving who can, in your experience, can or is actually driving those AI strategy initiatives? Would it be IT? Would it be a specific business unit? Would it be management? Like, what are in practice your experiences?
Yeah, it's a good question, because that's a good example of how a successful AI strategy can enable this cross-unit communication and the stakeholder involvement. Because obviously, data strategy or data governance, to use this term maybe, must involve IT department, clearly so. And IT in many organizations is a big ship to steer, right? It's not, I mean, the main job of IT department is security. So I get it. I totally get it if IT says, no, we don't do it, because that's their job to secure everything that happens. So the AI strategy really facilitates cross communication and a way to actually access IT and data in a structured way, and therefore really enables AI. For example, having a good data catalog to make use of AI or data in organization for AI projects.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. This is why some argue, or some organizations follow the privacy program and try to put data governance as an addition or an extension of privacy programs, because it's also so related to data mapping. But of course, it's personal data, so, and AI is not only about personal information. Great. Someone is saying a practical example would be nice. Fantastic. So let's talk a use case or practical example. So many organizations are seeking to implement LLMs, of course, in their organizational processes and workflows. I know that we at Daiki, we have a private LLM process and are supporting to implement this. And I want to and a colleague of ours, Wolfgang, he has a really great blog post written just 1 or 2 weeks ago on how to actually implement a large language models or generative AI or ChatGPT or others actually in a responsible manner. It's a very detailed blog post. I like it very much. Jona, can you enlighten us a little bit here? Is it even possible to implement LLMs in a private or secure way?
It is, and it's very important. Maybe 2 things on that, because it's a very good example. Also, to the question of why an AI strategy is important in the first place, because exactly like you said, taking ChatGPT and implement it or use it somewhere is really straightforward. Everybody can pop up a browser window and just have an OpenAI account and get going. And funnily enough, many employees are doing this without consent from their organizations.
I guess so.
So that's just a fact. And still, it's a very different thing, like, to really use this in organizations on private data, on company data, and so on. Just yesterday or so, or the day before, I think it was Bruce Shire in his blog mentioned that Microsoft had some intelligence about Chinese hackers training their coding skills with their Copilot tools. Interesting thing here is that how can Microsoft know? How do they know that ChatGPT or Copilot is used for training in China? Obviously, they are analyzing the ChatGPT and Copilot logs. So much about privacy, right? And that's the enterprise program for Microsoft, right? So it is important to think about data protection, about privacy. Just yesterday, ChatGPT went wild, hallucinating wildly, Twitter or X all over the place. Funny things going on. So another good example why subscribing to a service, an external service that you do not control, it is dangerous. I'm not saying that ChatGPT and Microsoft services are not good. There are valid choices in many use cases, but there are risks, especially about data protection and privacy. And thankfully, there are many open source foundation models and RAG system, retrieval augmented generation systems, that you can use in a completely private manner. You can have everything on premise. You can have this operate on your private data without any external services. So that's very doable, and in many cases very advisable.
It's fantastic. Are there any questions regarding this from the audience? Do you want to know something specific about this? Great. We posted Wolfgang's blog article. That's fantastic. So there you can get some more info. Okay. I would like to show our last slide because this is awesome, I think. I'm waiting for Thanks so much. So this is, if you have your phone ready, or if you are interested in any other way, there's also the website. We are currently offering like a free pilot program, so for use case identification and visibility, and you can also take the results, of course, with you. And you can sign up for this AI strategy pilot program on our Daiki website. Thank you so much. I think that's awesome. So, and we have some, thank you so much. I think we can, and thank you so much. We also have our colleague Kevin mentioned here. Kevin, Kevin's email address is here. So if you want to know anything about Daiki or the content, or have suggestions for other webinars, please write to us, and we would be happy to hear from you. And let's take some more questions. I'm sure we have not addressed all of them. What about Sparsh? Sparsh is asking another question. How can we continuously assess the performance of AI implementation over traditional methods, factoring in the length of maturity cycle of the system in terms of time? Scoping a use case is always tricky when external forces like competition call for faster shipping. I think it's very realistic or real world driven, this question.
Yeah, faster shipping, of course. Yeah, external pressure is a force that you should resist, maybe to some extent. Also, what I would like to highlight is that AI, or machine learning for that matter, is really more like a service than a product. That's at least how I like to think about it. What I mean with this is that if you have an AI product in production, it really behaves more like a service that is evolving over time. It's never the one model that lives there forever. I mean, ChatGPT is a good example. It's updated constantly, but it's really true for any AI system. And that requires constant monitoring and a very good, it's called MLOps, as you probably know, most of you. So a machine learning operations system that is also part of the AI strategy, of course, to plan the system at least. You should have this in place to really monitor your AI systems or services and adapt them constantly.
Yeah, there's no way around this, right? Is there... I think there was a question I missed. Do we also need a AI awareness strategy within an organization? I find that very interesting because it's also about AI training just for general understanding. What would you say? I would say it's part of, awareness is part of a good AI management system, as it is with information security. The same is true for AI management. So training and awareness and how to use things and use policies are needed. What would you say, Ed?
Yeah, exactly. I think it's for good reason. It is part of all these standards. For example, also 42001 has these trainings, and every quality management system has trainings, and for very good reasons. It's very important.
Great. So I think we can wrap it up here, and I would like to ask you all if you want to hear something in more depth, or something that you think is associated to what Daiki is doing in general, and you want to explore it more, we are open to your ideas for further webinars. There's so much great things we can share. And I think that's it. Write to us, reach out, give us feedback, give us ideas, apply for this AI strategy pilot program, and I would be happy to see you all again. And I thank you very much for your attention, for being here, and thank you so much, Jona, for the conversation. I love to work with you. Thank you so much, and thanks to our colleagues who made this possible in the background.
Many thanks.
Many thanks. Bye, everyone. Bye.